So, ladies and gentlemen, today on the show, I have Shaun Fury. So before we get going, Shaun, why don't you introduce yourself? Who is Shaun Fury?
Wow. Nobody ever asks that question anymore. It's
Really?
always just expected these days. Um, I am Shaun Fury. I am the founder of the Natty King, which is basically a project that first takes place within the sport of bodybuilding with the primary intention of discovering the next icon to come out of bodybuilding since Arnold Schwarzenegger, with the promise that that icon will be a natural athlete to revolutionize the sport and take it back to its roots, which is the promotion of natural human potential.
Wow. Okay. I want to dig just a touch deeper.
Sure.
That is you, and and the Natty King project sounds ambitious. It sounds engaging and entertaining, and sort of this big changing moment for the sport. But who are you beyond this project?
That's fair. That's fair. Um, I am I'm an artist at the end of the day. At my very core, I recognize myself as an artist, and my first love with the arts was developed in acting and theater and the performance arts. That started around age 14. As I continued to grow and develop, I got into filmmaking and became a producer and a writer. Um, and I'm 34 now, and I've been immersed in this project, the Natty King, which to me is a sprawling art project that takes place within the sport of bodybuilding. And it took me to get to this point in my life where I discovered that when it comes to the type of artistry that I'm very interested in, it's not confined to acting or filmmaking or writing or storytelling. What it's really confined to is world building. I love to build worlds. It's just so fun to me. And it's similar to George R. R. Martin from Game of Thrones, or J.R. Tolkien from Lord of the Rings, or Oda, who created one of the greatest mangas and animes of all time, One Piece. But I really recognize myself in that realm of storytellers and artists, and I just want to build a really beautiful world, something like Star Wars, and invite people to be a part of it. That's really who I am in a nutshell.
That's so wild. Um, but world building, such an interesting concept. Like for me, like you mentioned One Piece. For me, it's Toriyama and Dragon Ball Z, and just like that world building. So you're trying to build this hero, this journey, this entire world. What does the fleshed out Natty King universe look like?
I love these kinds of questions, man. Okay, the fleshed out Natty King vision. All right, so my whole strategy is working backwards. So we are aiming to have, this is Salem, by the way. We're aiming to have the first Natty King crowned in 2028. I do have an organization who has offered to handle the logistics, the infrastructure, put the show on, get the venue, raise the prize money, do all that stuff, which would allow me just to focus on, like we just discussed, the world building and the storytelling aspect of that. So we are aiming for that to happen in 2028. What I've been pitching for the past 3 years is that I would like to work backwards from a anime concept that takes place 20 years after the first crowning of the Natty King. So we connect the two. Something happens in real life, an actual event called the King of Naturals tournament in 2028, and we connect it to an anime that plays out in 2048, where the Natty King has been crowned multiple times, and we have already seen the fully realized version of its success in that future. And then in real life, we just work towards that anime concept where we get closer and closer to it being a global phenomenon that it is actually in the anime.
So well, I mean, it's because it's like bodybuilding. This project's an iterative sport, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be complete and it's going to be done. It's year over year refinement.
Yeah. It's tricky. I mean, I'll be honest, there's moments of, it is like bodybuilding because it's like you do the reps and you do the sets today and you go to sleep, and all you see is the progress of yesterday. And the many days before that, but you're not seeing progress. Like there is no leap and bound, is what I'm
Mm,
trying to say. You
mm,
don't go to sleep one day and wake up and go like, okay, everyone knows about this project now, and you can quit your day job, and all the hopes and dreams that you had for this project are now coming true today. It just is not built like that, unfortunately. I would love to quit my day job and commit like my attention and focus to this 100%. But it's years. I've been doing this for 3 years. I've made a lot of progress. The fact that we actually have a show, it's likely going to be in Miami, and those logistics are still being worked out. But the fact that I actually have an organization that's footing the bill for this, we're making really great progress. But even still, like let's say we get the Natty King crown in 2028, it still might not be a global success story in 2028. Just because we had that one canonized event, I still might need several years before the entire world knows about it. And I have to be okay with that.
mm. A lot of ambiguity there. Some
Yeah.
ambiguity.
Yeah.
Got a lot of pieces in place. So I'm interested in a lot of those pieces. So what would it take for 2028 to be a success in your eyes?
Wow, that's a really good question. Um, Man, you asked some good questions. I've done a couple of these, and I like.
Hey,
Okay,
come back anytime.
yeah. Hey, man, thank you. So, what would it take? Low threshold, the Natty King gets crowned. That's the low threshold, because here's what I understand about progressive stories. If I'm looking at the WWE format, or even if we wanted to look at Joe Weider and the Mr. Olympia, how many people know Larry Scott compared to Sergio Oliva compared to Arnold Schwarzenegger? Right? Larry Scott, I believe, won two Mr. Olympias. He was the first Mr. Olympia champion, and he won it twice. I believe Sergio won it twice or three times, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger popped on the scene. And it really, the sport of bodybuilding didn't really blow up until Arnold was winning, like, I think pumping iron. He won his sixth time, if I'm not
I believe that
mistaken.
was six. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like that's when the sport actually blew up. So if you think about the first Mr. Olympia compared to the 1975 pumping iron Mr. Olympia, how many years passed between that first one and that the one that became a feature length film? My intention, what I would like to happen in 2028 is the Natty King gets crowned in real life, and there's a companion piece in the form of a feature length film called The Natty King that captures the entire moment. And as a filmmaker and storyteller, I would just want that to be presented in a very cool, stylistic way, so far as the film is concerned. And we have that in a bottle, and it becomes like a something of a cult classic, uh, a time capsule, a time capsule. So no matter how big that first crowning is, we have that time capsule, and we'll always be
Mm.
able to refer back to it as it continues to evolve over many, many years.
And then that time capsule continues to grow and gain momentum. Like it might not even like in our minds like pop off like certain things on social media like
Yeah,
a billion this, billion likes, billion that, but
yeah,
as it grows, so does the meaning and the nostalgia and
correct.
just all of it.
You're giving me
You're laying the
goosebumps.
foundations.
Yeah,
Yo, man,
yeah,
I'm chills
100%.
over here. Woo.
Yeah, yeah. It's for me, it's all about lore. And I mean, if we want to go like really deep into why I'm very passionate about this, is because I discovered that meaning is at the root of this story. I want to provide meaning for humans to stay natural. And if we're just talking about athletes within the sport of bodybuilding, right now, the reason I entered this space is because I saw no incentive for an athlete, a bodybuilder, to stay natural within the sport. There's zero incentive. So I invented this concept of crowning the next sports icon to come out of bodybuilding and ensuring that it's a natural athlete for the sake of humanity, if I'm being completely honest, because we actually need a representative from the sport and from other industries, passions, hobbies to represent what it looks like to just pursue greatness without the use of external enhancements, without the use of performance drugs. And this is the beginning of that. So I'm looking to install meaning in that sense.
One of my favorite sayings is just lore is law. Like
Mm,
I love lore. I love meaning making. Um, let's dive into the Natty King because I want I want some specifics in that. Is the Natty King a singular person? Is it a bodybuilder? Is it a classic physique person? Are there men's physique people who could come for this title? Is it a male dominant vision? Is there a Natty King and a Natty Queen? What is the fleshed out sort of parts and pieces of this?
absolutely. Man, so the Natty King is an ever evolving concept. The way that it looks at the end is going to be a lot different than how it begins. My vision for 2028 is just to crown one man, the Natty King, and he will be crowned across the divisions of classic and open. So the current format, and we'll see if it actually looks like this. We're gonna have two divisions, classic physique and open, at the King of Naturals tournament, which is going to be in 2028. And the overall winner from classic and open will duke it out, and the judges will decide who should be crowned the Natty King. From there, I do want a Natty Queen. I do want to figure out a way to involve men's physique. But if I'm being completely honest, I think it's Natty King, Natty Queen, two individuals. But the cool thing is, this is, and again, this is all just storytelling and Lore's law. I like to look at the Natty King as like a George Washington figure, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And we crown the Natty King, we crown the general or the president, like the first Revolutionary War, right? And we're going up against the enhanced athletes. We're going up against the IFBB and the Mr. Olympia champion. So my intention is to just provide a figure for the rest of the natural bodybuilding community to rally behind, because we want to put our faith and our support in this individual, and it's a role model, and through that we create more opportunities for people to pursue that same title. So long story short, I do believe that men's physique will have its evolution within this narrative. But right now, my primary focus is having a George Washington type figure. And so far as the Natty Queen is concerned, I can't think of a historical figure that really fits the Natty Queen concept, but we're looking for that as well.
Most definitely. Wow, wow, wow.
Betty
Okay.
Ross.
Betty Ross. Hey.
She's pretty cool.
So, all right. So we've got open bodybuilding, classic physique. Let's just stick there for right
Mhm.
now because that's sort of what we're building to. And that was one of the questions in my mind. Is like, who does? Where is the judging criteria going to come from? I've been doing deep dives on OCB, WNBF, ANBF, UK DFBA, DFAC, all the like international and other, and everybody judges categories differently. Show formats are different. Some have morning and evenings. Some add in scores from individual routines. How have you looked at judging and criteria, and what is going to be the standard?
I know, man. That's a tough one. That is a
Yeah.
tough one. And
Yep.
I'm not even able to comment on it at length yet. I'm not even comfortable fully announcing the organization that I'm working with, just
Hmm,
because
hmm, hmm.
we haven't put pen to paper. But in the event that this does shape out in the way that it's looking, I will likely be taking the judging criteria of this particular organization and using that to determine. Um, but that being said, I do want to have a little bit of influence on the standard, just because I'm looking for a very specific individual, just to kick this thing off. I mean, don't get me wrong, like Larry Scott didn't, redefine peak male form, but he was a good first champion. And I would like my Natty King champion to have a bigger impact than Larry Scott. So far as like if we're relating it to the beginning of Mr. Olympia and the beginning of the Natty King, I would like our first athlete to be like, yo, this guy was phenomenal. And then we evolve from there, it gets even better. So to answer your question, I'm unable to. That's the truth. And I'm just keeping in mind. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions once I really get into bed with this organization, because it's very important that the first Natty King is just dope. I just and, and my idea of dope is like it's not really aligned with like I think we should all see it. You know,
Hmm.
judges, athletes, and audience members should see the athlete and go like, this guy, yeah, of course, that is the Natty King. You know, you're supposed to see that guy and go like, that's the Natty King right there.
So we have the Natty King on stage. We have
Mm-hmm.
that aspect of this person.
Mm-hmm.
This person in your mind, who is this person off stage?
That's a great question. Look at you, man.
Come
Dude,
on,
we're
come on.
gonna
I'm
be
here.
yeah, because you know this is like so I'm doing a feature film, which is like the Natty King, which is supposed to be a companion piece to the actual King of Naturals tournament. But obviously there's so much opportunity for documentaries. So like we'll be able to
Hmm.
take this conversation and clip it in the doc because you're asking amazing questions. Okay, so who's the athlete off stage? I've got to be the athlete off stage if I'm being honest. Just because I'm the one with the vision and I understand that it is more powerful if you think about why Arnold Schwarzenegger was so successful within bodybuilding and why pumping iron blew up. It wasn't because of his physique. His physique was
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
it played a factor. There was a role in like how great he looked, but it was secondary to his personality, his charisma, his drive, his ambition. All the things that made up Arnold Schwarzenegger is why bodybuilding blew up. So what I understand is that personally, and this is just like I'm a producer, I'm a filmmaker, I'm an actor, I have all these different backgrounds. I don't see an athlete in either side, enhanced or natural, that is looking to be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger, period.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
2028 comes along, we crown the Natty King. He's got a great physique. All I really need him to be off stage is a good person. That's all I need. I just need him to be a good person. And then my job as a showrunner, promoter, producer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is basically to play a Paul Heyman role, which is a WWE reference, but basically a manager.
Hmm.
I play
Hmm.
the role of the voice and the mouth for the Natty King champion. So he's really just got to be a stand-up dude and have a great physique. And then I can take care of the rest of like, all right, Natty King versus Mr. Olympia.
Mm, it's interesting. So you begin talking about this, and obviously I've got this sort of world is building in my head, and you bring up the Paul Heyman reference. Is there in the Natty King universe? Is there a certain amount of kayfabe involved? And just talk to me about that. And for people who are listening or watching that don't know, kayfabe is this wrestling concept that it's this illusion. It's the story that's created that everybody believes in that moment, and you don't break sort of that fourth
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah.
Even though you come here and you realize like this might be a little daytime TV, this that whatever you are in the story, and the Undertaker's a bad guy right now, and he's going to stay a bad guy for as long as I'm a fan of X, Y, and Z other wrestler, and that's just the way it is. So my question is, where does that come into play, or
Yeah.
does it at all?
Dude, you just hit me up, bro. Like I didn't even have time to research you. Uh, you just hit me up.
Yo,
Okay.
man.
Yeah. So where does kayfabe come into play? Dude, kayfabe plays a huge role. I'm very ambitious. I want to tell the greatest story of all time, if I'm just being completely honest. And the Natty King is literally just a branch. It's a launch pad for the greatest story that plays out around the world. And that story is fictional. The story is how humanity finally gets it right and they start working together to make the world a better place. That is the story. It's the hero's journey of the human species. That is the story I'm looking to tell. And it starts with the Natty King. So you ask me what kind of role does kayfabe play in this project? To me, my interpretation and definition of kayfabe is attaching meaning to something that's not real. That's how
Hmm.
I like
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
consider
Hmm.
kayfabe. And if I study the great world builders of my past, such as J.R. Tolkien, who's a perfect example. He created meaning within the One Ring. And Lord of the Rings is all about how the One Ring needs to be destroyed. So they go on a 2 year long trek. Frodo and Samwise, they get across, they get to Mordor, and they drop the ring into Mount Doom, and they save the day. For me, my artifact is the Iron Crown, and that crown is vital for the history of humanity. The Natty King has to be crowned in order to be the catalyst for what comes next. And what comes next is humanity starts figuring it out. Natural human potential is something that should be prioritized. And we can see this exemplified in the Natty King, in the project and the athlete and the person behind it, Shaun Fury, who believes that we can do so much more if we work together. And if we do not get this person crowned and we do not have this representative, then the current status quo just continues on, where we continue to believe that we aren't enough, that we need performance enhancing drugs, we need to augment ourselves, we need to cut ourselves and take peptides because our potential is capped and our beliefs stay limited. And that's the kayfabe story, that this is life and death, and we are looking to save the world. That is the story of the Natty King.
Who's this for?
My childhood self, of course.
Yo, read my mind with that answer. Why does that boy need this?
I didn't have heroes when I was growing up, man. Unfortunately, I really didn't have heroes. And I racked my brain. My father was cool. But he was very flawed. He grew up in a household where he had two alcoholic parents. So like he wasn't really getting the love and nurturing and upbringing that he was deserving of. So how does that person raise a kid to be whatever? Like he wasn't fully equipped, right? So I'm growing up, I'm doing sports. I don't like the coaches. I think the coaches are like out of shape and they're telling me what I'm supposed to do, but you're out of shape. And really, like the only person I really kind of looked up to, I didn't discover Jesus until my 30s, because my parents were taking me to church, unfortunately. Whatever, don't get me started. But I really liked Bruce Lee. I really liked Bruce Lee as a kid, and he died. He died at age 33. And I've always had the thought, this is my whole philosophy. Why isn't there an individual who is interested in peaking themselves mentally, physically, and spiritually and inserting themselves as a leader on a global scale? Like, why don't we have that person like in the history? Like, we can't even think of one person who is committed to self-improvement over the longevity of their life and instilling core values in the people that they interact with. Like, we just don't have that person. The closest example that we have to me, is Bruce Lee. And on the athletic side, someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger, his message is already diluted because he had to take performance enhancing drugs in order to realize his potential. So I want heroes. I think that humanity, it's like monkey see, monkey do. If we saw more upstanding individuals who are in complete commitment to their own self-growth, self-improvement, and self-mastery, then future generations can look at those heroes and say, I want to be like that person.
Heroes are almost these archetypal images in our heads, and I'm curious, some of the most compelling heroes, Lord of the Rings, other various journeys, they're not perfect. They're flawed in some way. So will this hero have a flaw?
Definitely. I mean, they're human at the end of the day. I don't, people call me the Natty King just because it's my idea, but I'm not the Natty King. The Natty King has not been crowned, but I'm very comfortable with being the standard bearer. And I represent what the Natty King is supposed to look like. And even within my own self, like my biggest flaw that I'm recognizing is ego. Ego is my big flaw. And what I find very interesting about that flaw is that I need the ego in order to do the wonderful things that I'm contributing to the world. Like, where would the ambition come from if it was not born out of a initial desire to satisfy my own ego. Now, the good news is that I don't have to finish with that drive. As I continue to evolve and transform and make an impact in the way that I intend, I don't have to rely on my ego as like my internal driving force. It can just be motivated by a desire to help people and improve the quality of life, which it's now becoming.
Hmm.
But don't get me
Hmm.
wrong, it was not based there when I first started this project. I just wanted to dominate. I just wanted to hop on the scene and go like, yo, I'm the greatest of all time. And you people are so dumb for not thinking of this idea in the first place. There should be a natural icon in the sport of bodybuilding. Why has this not happened before? And that was all ego.
Hmm. I'm curious. You said mentally, physically, and spiritually peaked. When we think of natural bodybuilding, when we think of bodybuilding, we think of a physically peaked individual. What does being mentally and spiritually peaked mean?
Absolutely. What is mentally and spiritually? Okay, so my philosophy, again, this is how I'm structuring improving the world, is that I think we should all have a physical goal, a mental goal, and a spiritual goal. And I think that if, as you're growing up, if you're a kid or you develop this belief in your, adult life, you pick your physical goal and you commit yourself to the practice of mastering that physical goal. For me, it's bodybuilding. And for my mental goal, being the greatest storyteller of all time. That's my mental pursuit. And then when it comes to spiritual, it is consistency with spending time with the Lord, going to church, building a community, and loving one another. So, like, that is my spiritual pursuit, and being a great father. So, connecting with humanity is really the spiritual pursuit. And when it comes to how I think that we could all grow better together, is if we are not just defining ourselves by one aspect of like what humans are. So it's like, if you're very smart, oh, I'm just going to do the mental pursuit and completely leave off the physical pursuit or the spiritual. So then you end up, I don't know, maybe you are really developed in tech and you become a billionaire in
Hmm.
tech, but you
Hmm.
didn't develop yourself spiritually or physically. You're you're not a fully complete, rounded out person, in my personal opinion. And yeah, I just think that we would all do better if we had these three different quadrants of ourselves, not quadrants, but to pursue.
So ideally, this is more than a physical pursuit. This is a tripartite, whole person, whole body pursuit that
Well
has
said.
your mind, spirits, physical, everything all combined.
Well said. Yeah.
Mm. Where does community come into play? I think that's one thing that gets downplayed, that we sort of maybe even take for granted, that we
Yeah.
now have these, yes, interconnected communities on social media or this or that. Where does the actual community, where do those people meet?
Yeah, man. That's actually a very good question, and it's one I'm still developing. Community is actually, I would say, my weak point. And if I'm just throwing it out there into the future, and I hope it manifests, but I will probably need a person who is more um, successful with that part, like a forum leader, or like a person who just is really masterful at cultivating communities. It's not a strength of mine. In fact, you mentioned One Piece and Ichiro Oda, the mangaka, and I introduced One Piece to my roommate many years ago, and he was surprised because from his perspective, the way I talked about One Piece, I just focused on Monkey D. Luffy and how he wants to be the Pirate King. And that's the only thing I would say about that anime. And then when my roommate's watching, he's like, oh, this is about friendship. And I was like, oh, I guess so. Yeah, I guess it is about friendship. But it's just not my, I'm still discovering it. I know it's vital. I know it's vital. But I'm still figuring out how to actually hit it. And that's why I go to church. Um, like you can spend time with the Lord outside of church, but church offers a community of people, of like-minded individuals who are all there for the same reason. And I'm aiming to learn what that looks like and how to actually implement that my own goals.
Really, I mean, if using church as an example, you create the beliefs and the values, and the community almost manifests itself. Like religion, spirituality. It's I mean, it's good for that. It's rich in that. I want to get more back to the sort of the brass tacks things. I've been enjoying this so far. Do you have time still?
Yeah, man, I'm here.
Excellent, excellent. So, uh, we've gone over judging criteria and how that's sort of in the works right now. Obviously, if you're working with an organization, can't really talk about that until that comes out. Great, fantastic, full respect for that. What is a natural athlete?
What is a natural athlete? I like to focus on the personality traits of a natural athlete over the actual definition of like what are they taking? What is a natural athlete taking to be considered natural? Personally, if we were to go with like just brass tacks, whatever's not on the WADA banned substance list, if you're not taking those items, then you're a natural athlete, and we could just keep it that simple. Now, I like to play devil's advocate. Why is the athlete looking for supplements in the first place? Unless it's like I'm all for optimization, and I'm all for like getting better sleep and recovery and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what I've noticed is that athletes have a tendency to over fixate on getting that 1% out of supplements rather than just figuring out how to master yourself, because that's what the Natty King is really all about. It's about self mastery. And it is my stance that supplementations, performance enhancing drugs, etc., have no, there's no like equation that fits for self mastery. Self mastery is an internal pursuit, and we get to discover the best version of ourselves through that commitment. And drugs have just nothing to do with it. They just have nothing to do with it. So the natural athlete is a person who is committed to their own self mastery, absent drugs, because, like I said, I don't see how drugs fit the equation.
Mm. So, I mean, it sounds so aspirational. Like that's the one thing. So I'm a clinical psychologist by training,
Oh,
and
that's super,
it's
super dope.
oh, appreciate it. And we focus on things in the DSM. We focus on the negative affect and just bringing people up to a certain point where they can function, and we can for good or for ill, if a person can't be billed for a certain set of symptoms or criteria that they're not meeting, we cannot continue to see them in certain settings, right? And I sort of lament that in a way, and I'm bringing this back around to you're not just this Natty King project isn't just about crowning a Natty King. I mean, that doesn't sound obvious. It is about crowning a Natty King, but it's about finding the person who's not only a physical master, but they also seek self-mastery and mastery over themselves beyond supplementation, beyond drugs, beyond.
Yeah. Yeah. I want an oath. I'm working on an oath. Are you familiar with like the Green Lantern Corps?
In brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Yo,
Okay. You're
Green Lantern's
cool.
light. Let's go. My
I
guy,
like you.
what's up? Let's go.
You are a cool dude. Very cool dude. But yes, I want an oath. I want a Natty King oath. And it really just like states the creed. And like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Because like we have hundreds, if not thousands, of natural athletes within the sport of bodybuilding who are just like, we're just doing it for the thrill of it. Like we're not getting
Yeah.
anything. Maybe we get a world championship title that nobody knows about. Nobody outside of the natural bodybuilding community knows about these world championship titles in WMBF, OCB, yada, yada, yada. We don't even know these federations' names outside of the sport. And we're still doing it. We're still committing ourselves to the pursuit over decades. And I just, I just think it's a disservice, especially if we like think about the fact that bodybuilding, unfortunately, it's been stigmatized, and it's really
Uh-huh,
been
uh-huh.
niched into this idea of bodybuilders take steroids. It is not health promoting. It has nothing to do with longevity, which couldn't be further from the truth. If you're pursuing the best version of yourself naturally by adhering to a resistance training program, it is very health promoting. Like, you will extend your lifespan if you commit to 3 to 4 days, five to 6 days of training a week, and you will see how your quality of life improves over the course of your life. And like, we're just completely leaving that off the table because of how bodybuilding is being perceived by the general public. And it is a disservice. We can save lives if we do this correctly.
Most definitely. I mean, where does that stigma come from? Like, it's branches off of the IFBB, things like that. In my opinion, this is my opinion. And then also like with social media and what gets projected to young people's screens, what gets clicks, what gets them to make purchases, and it's this big money machine. So as we're sort of coming to the end of this, what what do you hope people come away from this conversation, knowing about the Natty King, knowing about yourself, that would possibly motivate them to change something about themselves?
Wow, man. Let me think about that for a second to possibly change. You asked me earlier, who is this for? And I said the kid version of me that didn't have heroes. I would say who it's also for are people who walk around with limiting beliefs about what they're capable of achieving. Um, Everything that I'm doing in my life from now until honestly my deathbed is in service of removing people's perception of what they can achieve. My intention is to instill the idea in as many people as I can. If I can do it in billions of people over the course of my life, then I will. But I want to instill the idea that anything is possible and that we should never doubt ourselves and that we never, ever needed to inject ourselves with a needle in order to feel beautiful or feel powerful or feel strong, because those feelings can be found within. And if there's any takeaway for the Natty King project or the story that's unfolding within the sport of bodybuilding, it's that greatness lies within.
Greatness lies within. Shaun Fury, I had another question, but this is a beautiful way to end the podcast. Where can people go if they want to find out more about you or the Natty King project?
Shaun Fury is on all of my socials. That is Shaun Fury, ShaunFury. I am the brother of Nick Fury, and he is literally my older brother. And honestly, this is Shield. We're building Shield right now, and we just need a face. We need one face to canonize the event, and then we get to make history.
Fantastic. Shaun Fury, this has been great. Hope to talk to you soon. Best of luck.